Welcome to another episode of Connect the Dots. Today I'm joined by Andy. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jack, for having me.
Why don't you start by giving us a little bit of a synopsis about what it is that you do and a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I own and run Dragon360. We are a B2B paid media firm that focuses on helping brands navigate complex buyer journeys and moving buyers forward across the complexity of long sales cycles and high value deals.
Absolutely. What inspired you to start this in the first place?
So, interesting story. I didn't start it. I was not one of the original founders. I actually got hired as employee number three back in 2008. Kind of worked my way up through the organization, becoming a partner 6 years ago, give or take, and then actually buying the business outright just a little while ago. So, it's been an interesting journey. Get to see all kinds of things, get your hands dirty throughout the process, which has enabled me to become honestly just a better marketer, but also a better leader.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a bit of a misconception about B2B companies, about paid media today? Is there any misconceptions that you hear?
I don't know if about misconceptions. I think it's about more so just understanding the nuances and differences when you think about not just B2B versus B2C, but rather the nuances as it relates to all the different complexities that go into B2B. You've got transactional e-commerce, short cycle SaaS companies that, you're getting a demo, you're converting them into a trial, and you're converting them into a paid subscription within, let's say, 3 weeks versus something that's more of an enterprise level software or just a longer sales cycle that is 3, 6, 12, 24 months. And I think when you've got people that are hopping in between positions and organizations, it's not so much of a misconception, but more so a learning curve that goes into, hey, I need to adapt myself and my approach to align with who my buyers are and how they actually buy from us and ultimately how we sell in those sales cycles. So I think that's the biggest kind of thing that is so nuanced and so different is the need to think about not just who we're going after, but the sales cycle and the progression of what that looks like over the course of time.
Has B2B behavior changed in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you've got all of the adoption of AI in the sense
Hmm.
of not just operationalization within the market itself, but also how buyers use that as part of their research process, right? They're skipping ahead. They're using it more as a consideration phase of the buyer journey. I don't think too many people on the B2B side of things are truly using it to automate their decision making. That still goes back to human control, human behavior. That's never going to change, in my opinion. But I think as you look at the full landscape of the B2B buying process, the prevalence of AEO and answer engines and the influence that they have on that research process is certainly the biggest differentiator and biggest impact that we've seen in the last, let's say, 6 months.
Yeah, it's a great synopsis. And I was reading many companies are sort of still debating demand generation versus lead generation. How do you view the difference?
I view the difference in the sense of how it goes back to how you sell, right? What is your sales process? How do you actually sell what you provide? If it is a large sales team, you got to feed the beast. It's more likely that you're going to need to go into a more of a lead gen centric focus. If you've got a mid to smaller size sales team, guess what? They probably only want to be dealing with the people that are hand raisers and ready to move forward in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. So in that sense, it's got to be more of a demand gen motion where you are building awareness, you're building demand, and you're really kind of moving people across that buyer journey and capturing those that are truly ready to move forward, but not forgetting those that may not be ready to at this moment because eventually they will at some point. And then outside
Yeah.
of that, obviously you've got an account based motion, right? You've got kind of this mixture of it's not about lead gen. It's not about lead gen metrics, but it's certainly not a demand gen motion in the traditional sense of you've got a total attainable market and you're trying to move those buyers that were within that market. An account-based motion has to blend kind of inherently with that demand gen approach where you're prioritizing accounts based off of sales motions, based off of who you think is ready and most likely to convert into an existing customer or an upsell, a cross-sell motion, all those other things. So I think when you look at those kind of three differentiators, we see it all the time in the clients that we work with. Um, but 9 times out of 10 in B2B, it does shift towards more of a demand gen ABM hybrid model that works the best.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that at ABM. At what point should a company invest in ABM?
I think ABM is probably best suited for on ACVs that are typically, let's say, like 50K plus. I think
Right.
less than that, it's not that it doesn't work and it's not applicable. I think it's just not as a necessity as when you get into higher contract value deals and the
Yeah.
need to understand the sales influence and impact on those accounts because of the halo effect and surrounding of them that is necessary, but also the complexity of the buying decisions that happen within them. So I think when you think about like investing in ABM, the big thing that I always tell people, and we as an agency tell everybody, invest in the strategy, pilot it out. Don't go into like this huge investment of tech, like a Sixth Sense or a demand base where you're spending, $100,000 on the tech alone because you think that is ABM. Invest in the strategy, invest in the piloting, invest in actually getting the motion correct before you worry about the tech aspect.
Yeah. In terms of paid media, I know you've managed campaigns across countless B2B accounts. What separates high performing campaigns from, say, average ones?
High performing campaigns are the ones that actually move buyers forward. I don't want to keep going into that cliche route, but like the ones that truly move people forward in an account progression or in a pipeline motion and ultimate result in deals, those are the ones that work the best. The ones that are more average are the ones that I would say are being measured based off of surface level metrics and not the real business impactful metrics. And by that, I mean, I just mentioned pipeline, I mentioned account progression, opportunity stages, SQLs, things like that, right? Those are real business driving metrics that you want to be looking at in paid media. If you're just looking at things from an impressions perspective, a CPM view, some click through rates, who cares? That doesn't mean a damn of a difference for the business at the end of the day. And I think it's less about like average versus great performers and more so about how you are evaluating and analyzing the impact of those campaigns.
100%. In terms of channels, is there anything that's being overused by B2B marketers these days?
I mean, the standard playbook is always Google search plus LinkedIn for paid social, right? That's the standard playbook that's been used for the last 5 years.
Uh,
So I wouldn't say it's overused. I would say it's just become a commodity and kind of this just cookie cutter approach that many agencies take, as well as brands. We look at it a different viewpoint. We look at it more so going back to that audience centric view around who are the champions, who are the decision makers that are involved in this buying process, and where are they hanging out
yeah.
um, the most. Maybe that's Instagram, maybe that's Facebook, maybe that's connected TV and programmatic that we need to be kind of using as more of a demand gen awareness motion that is then captured via search. Obviously, ChatGPT ads are another thing that we are using now that we have access to it for clients and testing it out. Um, so I think it's though when we think about like what does the media mix look like, it ultimately comes back to what are we selling, who are we selling to, where do they hang out, and where are our best opportunities for making a difference. That's really what it comes down.
I've got to ask separate question. What would you be doing if you weren't in this space?
Boy, uh, I don't know. Like when I was growing up, I kind of almost wanted to be a teacher. I've always loved history. So maybe
Me
like a
too.
history teacher, gym teacher, something like that. Now I don't think I would. So I take that back as far as what I would be doing now if
Yeah.
I wasn't doing this. I don't know. I'm actually not sure.
You mentioned obviously AI at the start of the call. How is AI changing the industry and how you operate, run campaigns, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we have operationalized things internally through AI processes and workflows and agents. Um, in the sense of just reducing manual, mundane tasks. For example, we automate our reporting. We have notifications and dashboards set up so that way our team, which is mid to senior level people exclusively, can spend more time on actually strategy and less about like digging into the data necessarily, just to pull out insights and reports and things like that, but rather like letting AI kind of pull the aggregation of insights and reports and letting people act upon that. So giving them and allowing their time to be more valuable and more value driven for a bigger impact on the end client.
What do
I
you
think on the
use?
opposite side of things, like I said before, AI is obviously changing how the world works, how people are buying and consuming information, and ultimately impacting kind of that buying process. But again, I don't think decisions are getting made based solely off of anything that you see in ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or
Of
anything like that.
course.
I think it's just another aspect of that consideration phase of the buying process.
Yeah. So you don't have to give away your secrets, but what is it that you use for sort of dashboards? You do things on Claude or chat? What is it that you guys use for sort of reporting?
Yep. So, reporting wise, we actually create dashboards that we have a set of tools that pushes into Claude, that then pushes
Nice.
into uh, Google Data Studio or Looker Studio that
Nice.
provides our clients access to 24/7 data. And then in addition to that, we do more so in-depth monthly reports, where we have kind of Claude kind of building those out. And then our team is going through, obviously confirming that the information is correct from a data perspective, but then adding the strategic human elements on top of that as far as, hey, where do we go from here? What's working? What's not? What's scalable? Where are the opportunities that we can use to kind of fill gaps? And where does that direction take us from a growth strategy perspective?
Nice. Yeah. And you touched on it earlier. I know AI is not going to replace everything. Certainly not. What is it that you think will remain fundamentally human?
Um, I think there's a couple things. Decision making will remain with humans. Number one, humans don't want to give up control. Face it. You and I, we will not give up control to engine unless it is for a mundane decision that we feel has little risk
Yeah.
in our lives. And in most buying decisions, there's risk inherently baked into that, especially when you're buying on behalf of a business. Um, that's why I feel like human behavior and human control will not let go of
Yeah.
decision making processes in that respect. The other thing on top of that is that AI lacks emotion. It comes across as having some level of emotion, but in reality, it's not true emotion.
Yeah.
And people resonate and react and are swayed by emotional triggers, emotional messaging, and emotional things that they see and latch onto in their everyday lives. So when we think about, let's say, like creative concepting or creative brainstorming, I think AI and the various tools and SaaS products that exist across the ecosystem do a great job at providing examples and act as a brainstorming tool, but and they can work great as far as the end production of certain pieces of creative.
Yeah, I agree.
When we think about like strategy and those aspects that really go into it that tap into human psyche and human behavior, I think just human to human aspect of that is one of those things that AI is going to have a very hard time challenging and replacing.
Yeah, I agree massively. And after working with hundreds of B2B companies, what patterns do you see among, the fastest growing businesses within the space?
Those that are willing to test and understand, particularly when you think about sales cycle lengths, that not everything can be measured in leads, cost per lead, or those metrics that are short sighted in the grand scheme of what a true business growth plan looks like are the ones that are successful. Those that are willing and ready to invest in brand, in demand, in preference marketing, and understanding that B2B buyers in particular already have an inclination and some semblance of potential vendors in their mind when they begin their research process. And by becoming more of a preferred vendor before that process begins is going to give you a leg up. And in order to do that, you do need to be willing to invest in those brand and demand initiatives and not rely solely on, let's say, demand capture via search or just retargeting or these lower funnel only activities that might look good and produce some quick wins and short term results, but really don't give you the catalyst for true business growth.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of C-suite founders, but we have a lot of younger professionals who are thinking about getting into this space. Do you have any advice for our younger audience who are maybe thinking about getting into the digital or the marketing or the advertising space, who are looking to make that next step in their career?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different things here. One, and this goes back to what I would have said probably 5 years ago. Um, just get your feet wet. Just get in there, start doing stuff, get your hands dirty. Don't be willing to break things because what you'll find is those break points are going to give you learning opportunities for improving what you know, how you do it, and helping you find your way, so to speak, in ways that you will then capitalize on and create differentiation for yourself within the market. Not just if you're in a business or run a business, but also you as an individual, as a job holder. Now, if I look at today with, again, not to just kind of beat the dead horse here of AI, but going into it knowing how you use it, how you can use it, how it's going to impact your opportunities, but not relying solely on it to do your job. Because
Yeah.
then you've created this kind of commodity across yourself that you are easily replaceable, right? You need to have that kind of balancing act of, yes, I know how to use these tools. I can use them effectively. They create a higher value output of my work, but my work is supported and really differentiated by me, myself, not the tools that I am relying on exclusively.
Yeah, it's great insight. Andy, thank you very much. I've got some fantastic content there, so thank you.